Please join me in prayer. Dearest God, thank you for this day, and thank you for bringing everyone here together safely. It is because of your goodness that we gather in this place today. Lord, thank you for Steve. Thank you for Steve. Thank you for Steve's influence upon our lives. Thank you for Steve's impact upon my life. God, I ask a special blessing over Steve's family, especially his wife Tracy, his stepdaughter Brianna, his grandsons Tommy and Fletcher, Leanne and Jeff, his sister and brother-in-law, and Linnea and Nolan, his niece and nephew. Be with them all, Lord. May your grace fall upon them today and always. Lord, I ask that you bless all those who knew and loved Steve too. Please comfort our grieving hearts and encourage us with compassion through these tough moments of grief. God, be with us all here today as we remember the life of Steve. As we honor Steve's life, help us to hold his memory close in our hearts and in our minds. Lord, help us to discover that there is comfort in sharing with friends and family during difficult times. May the words heard here today remind us of the wonderful moments we have shared with Steve. Lord, may your light shine throughout this celebration. God, may we always be reminded that you hold our days in your hands. I ask that you protect our families, our friends, and our coworkers. I pray for our nation, our service, and I ask that you bless our local and national leaders, our country, and the world. In your most holy name we pray. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you all for being here. We're going to have some friends and family, coworkers of Steve's share some memories. And first we're going to hear from Steve's friend Gina. Gina?
Steve was the king of puns. I posted a while ago about a truck that crashed and a whole bunch of watermelons fell all over the road. He was the first to reply and he said, "Wow, that's one juicy story." I'm already missing his puns. I met Steve in high school. We were in band together. He played the trumpet and I played the clarinet. And there were two things that I really remembered about him about that time was, one was his crazy, zany, funny sense of humor that always kept us in stitches. And the second was more moving to me, and that was how he always stuck up for the little guy. He absolutely detested anyone being belittled or bullied or not included. He went out of his way to make sure that they were cared for and included in all the fun. And that really moved me. So as you go on in life, right, you graduate. I moved to New Jersey for 10 years, and when I came back, there was our first high school reunion, and that's where we met up again, and we picked up the friendship right where we left it without a beat. And as the years went on, it got deeper and deeper. And we enjoyed photography. That was our passion and our hobby together, which took us on a lot of great adventures. The most wonderful being when Tracy, Steve, and I went to Alberta, Canada. And we were absolutely determined to get our bucket list photo shots. And one of them was the sunrise coming up Lake Moraine. So Tracy, being wise, she stayed in bed because we had to get up at 3 in the morning and make our trek out there. And Steve had thought of everything, including a headlamp, which I totally forgot. So off we went. It's about a half-mile hike trek in. And about a quarter of the way, we came upon really steep, jagged rock steps. And he's just pouncing up them, and I'm standing at one of them because they're at my knees. And I'm trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to get up the step. And he turns around this headlamp. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Buddy, I don't know how I'm going to get up the step." I said, "You know what? Don't miss your shots. Get up there. Don't worry about me." And he goes, I said, "It might just take me a little time to figure this out." And he goes, "Oh, no, no." And he came down the steps. And he put out his hand. He goes, "Take my hand. I'll get you up." And he got me up every one of those difficult steps with time to spare. And we got our beautiful Lake Moraine shots. And that is one of his glorious Lake Moraine shots there. Steve's hand and mine, both figuratively and literally, was a precious gift to experience in life. And I know there are many here that feel the same. My faith says that love lives on. And the evidence of that truth is sitting right here in this room. We're here because we love Steve, and moreover, because he loved us. And though the love we have of him now is not the same as feeling his presence among us, still, we are not left with nothing but Steve. In fact, we are left with the most exquisite part of him, his love. And there was no one he loved more than his beloved wife, Tracy. Tracy, when I used to watch you and Steve on a dance floor together, it was like watching the most magical form of love. You both were in perfect sync, not only on a dance floor, but as you went through life together. And I know when you see him again, his hand will be outstretched for you. And he will smile and he will say, "Let's dance, honey. Let's dance." So Steve, my friend and brother in life, we send you off with our love. And I pray you always feel our love towards you, and that we always feel your love towards us. And may the love share sustain us all till we can together again put our hand in your hand once more. May God hold you close, and may heaven for you be beautiful, peaceful, and joyful. I love you.
I really loved Steve's photography. He had a gift. And if you look on the back table, some of those pictures that he took are just amazing. Magazine cover, amazing. Just jaw-dropping amazing. So, next we're going to hear from Steve's sister, Leanne. Come on up, Leanne. And thank you, Gina, for sharing those wonderful memories.
Holding the mic is kind of hard for us. I don't think we were Italian, but we talked with our hands a lot. So, I had the honor, let the train go by. I had the honor of calling Steve my brother, and he's my only sibling. And Steve and I were very close growing up. Whether we were playing kick the can out in the road with the neighbor kids, or building a parachute fort in the backyard over the swing set, or even chucking kumquats at each other in the orange groves. We were always together. He was virtually my built-in best friend. He was my rock, my absolute rock. He's the one I could always count on to be there for me all through my life. On the highs and on the lows, he was always there. But I'm not the only one in this room that can call Steve a brother. There's dozens of men and women in this room who can easily, equally call Steve their brother. He spoke so fondly of his friends and his family and how much you all meant to him, because he loved deeply. He was a rock not only to me, but to everyone who knew him. Steve's gift of caring and genuine love for his family and his friends and his grandsons ran very deep, beyond normal. His patience and perseverance, his dedication to take the high road in all the situations is something I totally admired in my brother. We'd laugh a lot about a lot of things because he was very funny. But he always was able to be as professional and loving and caring. He was a natural teacher, so if he was sharing knowledge about his work or photography or motorcycles or German shepherds, jokes and smiles came so easily for Steve. He had so many talents. His photography is just fabulous. His line dancing, he could cut a rug, big time, tear up that dance floor. You didn't know that about him, but he was something else. His better than Clark Griswold Christmas yard decorating. He and Tracy would light up Roseville. And of course, his passion for being a food connoisseur. I mean, we're all gonna miss his pictures on Facebook of all those hole-in-the-wall pizza places and his smoked brisket. But I truly believe that Steve's connection, his God-given gift was connection. Whether he connected with you through his wickedly funny sense of humor, or barbecue, or his love of dogs, or even through work, he had the gift of making you feel included, important, and very valued. He saw you. It was genuine. He saw you. And so many of you know here today know that he'd drop anything for you if you needed him. And he would be there in a heartbeat. He was the ultimate friend. He was the good guy. There were times when I'd see him online late at night when I have insomnia and he was online and we would text or chat for hours. And I could always count on Steve to counsel me on worldly advice about life or the challenge of parenting. And when I needed a good laugh and a good 5150 story, he always had one. He and I used to joke all the time with my dad that they were 5150 magnets, and they had a lot of stories to tell. I will forever miss his countless memes, his silly memes and jokes, his stories about Steve and Tracy working on their house, never-ending projects, and he would often say to me, "I'm just doing my best to channel Dad. I'm trying to remember what Dad would teach him, what he taught me." He says, "I just want to make Dad proud," because that was so important to him. Now, Dad passed away a while ago, and I know for a fact, Steve, that you accomplished that 1,000%. After Mom and Dad passed away, and when our dad was going through cancer treatments, Steve strived to keep his spirits up. And he would tell him all these crazy stories. And I can remember one that he even wrote down. And he says, "Share this with your fellow chemo patients." And my dad, he loved this story so much. Steve never minded being the center of his story, especially if it brought a heartfelt belly laugh or a chuckle, happy tears. He was all in for it. To hear Steve Bowman tell a story in his wit and style was to feel a wink from God. Now, since he allowed me to share this, I'm a little apprehensive, but if he's sitting on my shoulder, he'd say, do it, do it. So I am going to do it. It doesn't come across like Steve Bowman would tell the story. I can never give it the delivery it deserves, but it goes something like this. At work, an elderly couple from Europe was coming through his station or area, and he spotted something in the lady's medicine bag that needed further inquiry. Now, Steve pulled out what looked like some type of a glass pipe of some sort, and he was trying to ask about this pipe, this object. And it became abundantly clear to Steve very quickly that there was a language barrier, too great to continue. So in true Bowman fashion, he resorted to the international language of charades. He respectfully and gently tried to imply that this was a type of pipe of some sort, and he held the object to his mouth, pretending to smoke it. Well, the more he handled the object, the more irritated the lady became and agitated, and she was shaking her head, nyet, nyet, nyet. The more agitated the lady became, the more the husband started chuckling. And it grew into like a belly laugh. Because Steve quickly learned that when it was his time, the husband's time for his turn at charades, Steve quickly learned that the object he was trying to smoke was not a pipe indeed, but rather a glass applicator to use to apply hemorrhoid cream. Okay, I wasn't sure if I should tell that, but I know Steve is so happy I did. Okay, my dad got a lot of mileage out of that joke. I even shared with my teachers that joke. Steve was the most incredible brother, son, husband, stepfather, grandfather, and uncle. He was a rock to absolutely everyone who knew him. And as I close, I have to share this because this is so important to me. Because I truly believe in faith, in God, that He's there with my parents, but I believe in signs. And if you look for signs, you will find signs. Remember how I told you that Steve had this remarkable connection with our dad? Super close. A lot of respect mutually. And from this day on, I will forever think of both Steve and my father when the clock strikes 11:11. Because you see, Steve was born on the 11th of January. He left this world to meet Jesus and our parents on the 11th of July, which happened to be my father's birthday. And my father also passed on the 11th of August when he went to heaven. So 2 of the 4 most amazing men in my life came into this world on the 11th and passed on the 11th. And what are the odds of that? Never underestimate the power of connection with your friends, with your families, with your coworkers, because that connection runs deep. And that's why Steve was put on this earth, is for connection. And one last thing I didn't put on my notes is I was Googling 11:11, and my husband Jeff and I live in Wisconsin now. There's a town called Fond du Lac. And in Fond du Lac is a hamburger place called 11:11. So, Steve, on your birthday, they have smoked brisket there. God bless you, my brother. I will forever miss you beyond measure.
Thank you, Leanne. What a guy. What What a guy. Next, we're going to hear from Brianna, Steve's stepdaughter.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm the daughter. I am not the storyteller or the public speaker. Any of the other people are, so I will be brief. And apparently start crying immediately. It's very embarrassing, I'm sorry. So, there's a lot of people that don't have the fortune to have even one dad. And I got two very amazing dads. I can't even see my thing. This is so embarrassing. Thank you, Shane, for making me the bigger one. So Steve came into my life when I was, about 10 or something. And it was a very rocky start for us because of me. And but his love and his devotion to my mom proved to outweigh any hurdles, and he was determined to make our family work, which it eventually did very well. He was those things in all aspects of his life, whether it was his family or his work or his numerous clubs and groups that he participated in. He was determined to succeed. He was loving and he was supportive to all. And he was devoted to the cause of whatever he was participating in at that time. And he was the man that brought you up and lifted you higher and never wanted anything more than for everybody to succeed. He never put you down. He never made you feel inadequate. And he always gave a positive vibe and a supporting hand. He was so much fun, and that's what he wanted life to be. Even when he knew there had to be serious moments, he never wanted to forget to laugh or smile a little bit, and even if it had to be under your breath or hidden. If you knew Steve for even 30 seconds, you knew Steve's sense of humor, and you knew this was a man that loved to laugh and loved life. I can't tell you how many times I would flip through my camera roll after a family get-together, and I would randomly find these goofy selfies of Steve from out of nowhere. Or how many times I would open my Facebook late at night and have a message. And as an adult, I got to enjoy Steve's wildly inappropriate humor, which we shared. And I wanted to share, but I wasn't sure if I was supposed to. He always found the humor in life. And it's still hard for me to grasp that he won't be joining us for the upcoming holidays. And even here, right now. The fact that he was taken away, it was just way too soon. And we all miss him so much. And I have to believe that God had a plan for him. Even though I can't fathom what it is. I can only believe that, I hold solace in the fact that he is joined in heaven with his mom and with his dad, whom he loved so much. And the many dogs that he has loved and supported has come through our life, which, by the way, that's in double digits in just the amount of time I've been around. And with his friends that he's also lost. And we get to share that loss. I'm so sorry. And he gets to be joined together with them in eternity. The time we have on earth is so short, and we must enjoy it as Steve did every day. And we must tell our loved ones how we feel each and every day, just as he did. And we must find comfort in knowing that eventually we will all find our way back to each other again. And I'd like to ask that everybody, as you hear people speak or you talk to people and you hear their stories, that you just think for one moment about the time that Steve touched you, held your hand, helped lift you up, or made you laugh. Just take that moment. That's all. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Tracy.
Before I share some history and memories of Steve, let me first thank each of you for joining us today. And thank you too for the stories and the memories that you've shared with me and through Facebook. It has been so nice to hear that you all saw the same things that I saw, the good qualities, the quirks, the crazy sense of humor. I've been amazed in the amount of time that has passed, how many people have been touched by him and how many have offered support and help, not only from people and friends and officers that I've already met and know, but from those that I've never even met. I've heard of a lot of you though, so if you think that those stories are getting passed quietly, Steve told me a lot of those. Part of a person's reputation comes from the people that you surround yourself with, your tribe. Steve's tribe. You are an incredible group. A special thank you goes out to Gina Henderson, who you heard from, Steve's longtime friend, without whom today's celebration simply wouldn't have been the same. So now, the rest of the story. As Brianna mentioned, in 1990, I was newly single. I had a young daughter, and I felt like I needed some change in my life. So I picked up the adult education catalog and said, I'm going to take some classes. Well, I signed up for a very eclectic group of classes, but it was the country dance class that led me to the best change that I could ever have asked for. Steve had a zest for life. He didn't save it for when he retired. He lived it every single day. He managed to always find something new to be enthusiastic about and build long-standing friendships along the way. Even when his passion for the latest thing passed, the friendships remained. His Chevy Impala SS and the Region of Doom car club, his Piaggio MP3 scooters, and I know many of you had discussions, is it a scooter, is it a motorcycle? And he would puff up and, it's a manly ride, no matter what you said. And a whole group of scooter riders that went along with that. And his Moto Guzzi motorcycle, which he and I both love, and a whole group of new riders to be friends with. The One Up Me online challenges. Some of you he has sucked into that group as well. And it's another group of friends to interact with on a daily basis. Toastmasters, a whole new world of friendly and supportive people who are working on self-improvement as speakers and leaders, and Steve was working on that too. Our neighbors. We have a great neighborhood where we actually know each other and get together and we care about each other, and they're here today. Even people on our Italy vacation tour bus, right? I got to know some of the people, but by the second day, Steve had already met everybody on the bus. He knew who all their kids were. He had their contact information, and he relayed all of this to me, and up until his death, he was still in communication with these people. He would keep going, oh, well, you remember so-and-so. They sat 2 rows behind us on the back, and we out on the bus, and they have the daughter that does da-da-da. Well, they're doing this. So those friendships have always meant so much to Steve. He loved to get to know new people. Whether it was my class reunion or standing in line at Lowe's, he may not know you, but it didn't matter. He was always up for a chat. We both liked something new, something different, something a little quirky, interesting style, design. But Steve could always dial it up just one more notch. It showed up in his knives, his watches, his shoes, his shirts, challenge coins, even kayaks. We don't have regular kayaks. No, ours are foldable and fit in the trunk of our car. Because that's a quirky thing, so we've got to have that. Decorating at Halloween and Christmas was really fun and creative. We had ghosts that flew from the shrubs to the roofline, and he dressed up a go-kart as a ghost, packaged up a bunch of little treats, and then he whirred around the neighborhood handing out snack bags to everybody. The kids were a little concerned, but the parents absolutely loved it and raced out to take pictures with him. We really enjoyed projects at the house, and I know you've been subjected to the projects at the house. And whether we were redesigning the yards, building fountains, giant shade structures, or ripping out everything to the studs and redoing the bathrooms, we really enjoyed working together and creating something from our imaginations. The phrases, "I was thinking," or, "you know," we could always led to a new project. And I know many of you were subjected to the in progress photos and the, oh my God, thank heaven it's finally finished photos. Steve took a photography class in college, and he was so happy to rekindle that hobby with his friend Gina, as she mentioned. We all went on the same vacation in Canada, and Canada is beautiful, especially in the warm sunlight. However, no, it wasn't warm sunlight. It was 4:30 in the morning because some of us had to go to a very special place to get a very special photo, and it wasn't even the Lake Moraine photo. There were more of them. This one I bundled up, freezing, thinking, you know, I could still be in my cozy little bed. Did I really need to come with them this time? I was smart enough to stay in bed the last time, but I'm kind of huddling up, thinking about why I did this, and they are happy as clams, setting up equipment, chatting about lenses, they're comparing meter readings. Oh, well, how are we going to set this one up? And I'm just looking at them going, you know, those two are just as happy as they could possibly be. And you know what? They got the joy of the doing outweighed the cold in the bones, and they got some beautiful shots. Steve didn't just treasure his friendships. He cared about people, even those he didn't even know. As we made what seemed like our weekly trip to Lowe's or Home Depot, without saying a word, you know, we would just automatically go over and help somebody who was struggling to load up their vehicle. We automatically just help people out. And it's a habit with law enforcement to always be aware of your surroundings. And if something didn't look right, he would stop and he would check it out. And there were more than once he called 911 for a stranger that needed help. So he was always trying to be aware, to help people. I used to tease him about being the world's policeman. It's like, really, honey, calm down. You don't have to cover everybody, although he really felt he did. Most of the people who come across someone at the side of the road with the red and blue lights are flashing, and maybe they'll slow down a little bit, maybe they might move over, but they happily go on their way, really glad they're not the ones that got pulled over. You know, there's always that, okay, they didn't see me speeding, all right, I'm good. But Steve will slow down, he'll assess the situation, he'll kind of decide if the officer looks like maybe they need a little backup, if there's anything hinky going on. So he'd kind of give them the signal, and, you know, if there's a wave off, then we're off on our way. If there wasn't, he'd pull over and he'd assist as needed. One time he actually provided medical assistance to try to save the life of a boy that was being taken to the hospital by his father, and his heart stopped on the way. Bundled out, Steve's given CPR at the side of the road. Steve loved his job with the CBP. He liked the variety, he liked the challenge, He loved de-escalating situations, even smooth-talking people into confessing things that they had no intention of ever telling. There was a driver at the seaport who's still alive and working because of Steve. The driver was trying to seat a shipping container on his truck, on his trailer, when a steel bar kicked loose and hit him in the head. And his injuries were so severe that he needed CPR. And Steve immediately started working on him, assisted by CBPO Karen Hughes, until the EMTs could arrive. And Steve found out later, a few months, that the man had healed up and made it back to work. And he had been dead. So Steve was so happy to have been able to make that happen. He loved to solve things, whether it was responding to Hurricane Harvey or the Asiana Airlines crash. Steve liked to help to fix the problem. One of the things that he liked the best was learning and teaching others, building leaders, taking the time to show people a more effective way of doing something. Bowmanizing. I know you've heard that term over on this side of the road. It showed up in his one-on-one work with other officers and in periodic assignments as an instructional coach at the FLETC Federal Training Academy. Steve loved food. He was a good and a creative cook, and a lot of us in this room have benefited from that. His Traeger became a staple in his life and led to yet another group of friends. What temperature to smoke? What pellets to use? Brine, rib, which do we do? Advice and recipes exchanged by all. Our neighbors certainly knew when Steve was home by the cloud of smoke wafting through the neighborhood. But he would always cook twice what we could possibly eat so he could take some into work. Some of you have been asked, hey, you had lunch yet? You hungry? Come on in, let me fix you a sandwich. Go grab something out of the refrigerator. Now, let's see. And out would come the brisket, the tri-tip, the ribs, whatever he had done. He loved feeding other people as much he enjoyed eating himself. And he loved RC Cola. I know you know, especially for the memes. So, the table decorations today represent some of the many sides of Steve. Baseball hats he bought as souvenirs wherever he would go. The barbecue representing his love of barbecue and the Traeger, and his job. You are welcome to take any of the decorations on the table home with you if you like. Steve was a special person that held a spot in our hearts that no one else had ever filled. Shot glasses have been provided on your table, and if you would like to distribute those now, there have been 2 cans of RC Cola delivered to you. If you would like to join us, if you'd like to raise your glasses in memory of Steve.
Hi, and thanks for calling. You've reached Steve. I'm out busy saving the world from total destruction. Leave a message.
Bobby Woods.
So as many of you know, Steve and I have known each other all our life. Our parents met around 64, 65, the Forest Service. So we've been all around. When I retired from the Air Force, Steve gave me a call while I finished the TAPS class, transition assistance for those of non-military. The story kind of goes like this. Steve calls up, hey, I hear you're retiring from your mom and dad. I said, yeah, why, what's up? Have you ever considered U.S. Customs? You mean those people that check passports all day? No. Of course, he does that Bowman laugh. He says, you don't really understand what we do you? Other than check passports all day? No. So he goes on into it. I'm intrigued. Go on and apply. About 2012, I go through the academy, graduate in 2013. Steve, my wife, and my dad go out there to graduation, and then I joined Steve at SFO. And we actually were roommates the whole time I was at SFO. And like many of the stories go, Steve was always there, whether at home at the apartment or at work. Get drafted for overtime. Hey, have you had a chance to eat yet? Come on. You walk into his office and it was like walking into a mini 7-Eleven. He had the fridge with sodas, chips, candy, whatever you needed, and he made sure you were going to make it through your shift. You had a passenger that might get irritating or something and you needed a supervisor, go talk to Steve. Hey, I need you. He'd look at you. Did they need to be Bowmanized? Well, I need your help. Okay, we'll be there. Steve was always there for everybody. Whether it was making sure you ate or helping a friend build a deck on his RDOs, on his days off, he loved helping people. One of his many things, as was mentioned, was food. We would always go out. I'd come from work. He'd be changed already. Did you eat yet? No, I just walked in the door. Come on. And he would find the hole-in-the-wall pizza place or something like that. And one of his favorite Bowmanisms. Hot food comes out, and of course you're hungry. You take a bite and burn your mouth, and he'd look at you, make sure you were okay, and with that Bowman grin, did you learn anything? And you want to curse him out, but you're just too busy laughing and trying to cool your mouth off. But I got him back. And Tracy can attest to this. I love Korean food. My wife is Korean. They have these little banana chips that look like white cheddar Cheetos. I was sitting at the apartment eating those. Steve comes up, can I have one? Of course, like a brother to me. Takes a big handful and pops them in his mouth. You would have thought I robbed him of some guilty pleasure. I think he was expecting white cheddar Cheetos. The look on his face when he realized they were these banana chips. That was probably in early summer. That Christmas, he did not forget. I ended up getting a bottle of banana schnapps as a gift, as a joke. That was Steve. I'll never forget you, brother. So, rest easy. We're going to miss you.
Thank you, Bobby. Now we have Assistant Port Director Hutton to say a few words.
So before I start, you know that train that went through here earlier, right? That was Steve. Making sure the horn was blowing as people were talking. That was totally Steve. Steve was one of the first people that I met when I arrived in San Francisco. I came on a house hunting trip and he walked right up to me, introduced himself, and what I thought was a 5-minute conversation, 30 minutes later, said, well, I gotta go. He had that way of engaging people, and I'm going to regret doing this, but Steve, this is for you. So I flew in yesterday from Washington, D.C., and I know that Steve is up there looking at us right now with all his new friends in heaven, and he's looking at him and saying, I bet his arms are tired. And as everyone would groan, he would continue with 5 more jokes, each one more inappropriate than the next, and you'd have to tell him to stop. But he just had that way of making a connection with you. But he truly was a Renaissance man, whether it was redoing his backyard for the umpteenth time, going to the 5th Lowe's to make sure he got the exact red color that you wanted for your outdoor shade structure, sharing pictures, to his cooking. I remember he brought in his famous brisket and offered me some, and I said, Steve, I'm sorry, I don't eat red meat. And he says, are you sure? Because it slapped your mama good. I said, Steve, look, please. The next day, he brought in homemade salsa because he said, I know you don't eat red meat, but you can't not eat salsa. And that's just exactly the type of person that he was. Steve had a second love. You saw brief pictures of her. Her name is Sophie. And like everything Italian and mechanic, that Moto Guzzi caused him no amount of stress and consternation getting it to work and run. And Tracy, I would be willing to bet you a large amount of money that it's in pieces in a garage someplace as he was trying to get it to run again. Whether he was fixing something or building something, he did it with a humbleness and an expertise that just completely shocked you. When he showed you pictures of things that he built or even pictures that he took, I remember saying, wow, how much did you pay to get that done? Well, I did it myself. And he would be willing to say, well, if you want something like that, I'll come to your backyard and build one for you too. Which I had to tell him, well, I live in a 520 square foot apartment in San Francisco, so we're not building any outdoor structure. But Steve, he was very introspective as well, and during Bruce Eckhoff's eulogy, he said something about him, and he said that Bruce never let his authority outspeak his character. And for those of you who don't know, our senior leadership was here, and EAC Corey Huffman heard that, and it resonated with him, and he started using it at leadership conferences, that very phrase. And he reached out and he wanted to thank Steve personally and let him know that what he said had a profound impact on him. So Tracy, those words are going to continue out CBP, the agency that he loves so much. And while there's no words that anyone can say to make you feel better, I would like to share something with you that someone passed on to me many years ago. God is like us, he picks the prettiest flowers first.
Area Port Director Marley.
But thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity to get up here and say a few words. I didn't know Steve as well as most of the people in this room. I've only had the opportunity to get to know him in the last year and a half. He came down to the Custom House to make use of his photographic skills in trying to get some public media things out on the good work that CBP does. But in that year and a half, I really got to enjoy his sense of humor, his dedication, his engagement, and everything that he took on. He took on very seriously, but he always took it on with a great sense of humor, which is really appreciated in our jobs. The one story that comes to mind is not nearly as saucy as the ones that I've been hearing, but to me, it spoke a lot to his character. And as most of you probably know, he had a car that he really loved. It was, I don't know the make of it, but he kept it spotless, shiny wheels and everything. He parked it outside on the street below the window of his office in the Custom House in downtown. One day, I was walking back to my office, and Steve rounds the corner, and he's got this look like he'd seen a ghost. And I may be wrong in the exact wording, but he said something to me as he passed to go down the stairs to the effect of, "They killed my car." I was clueless at that point, but so he went down the stairs. I went to my window, looked out, and right in front of his car, there was a FedEx truck at an angle. And basically, the whole front end of Steve's car was sitting on the ground. Apparently, the truck had hit his car. So I thought, well, I better go down and see if he needs any help. There was a very agitated young driver walking around with his cell phone, probably terrified that he was going to lose his job. By the time I got down there and I walked around the corner, Steve was giving him some fatherly advice in a very calm voice about the mistake that he made in rounding that corner. I didn't know that, but apparently Steve had driven a bobtail truck at some point in the previous life. But you could see the look of relief on that young man's face. He was still obviously upset that he had made this big mistake. But Steve was not chewing him out. He was not threatening him, anything like that. To me, that says a lot about a person's character, because a lot of us, I think, if something like that happens, something that you really value to that extent, you very likely would be raising your voice, probably saying some not very nice things, probably making the poor guy feel worse than he already did. But that wasn't Steve. And, you know, after a few moments of lecturing this young man in a fatherly tone again, he comes over to me and you know, looks at the car, he shakes his head, and I can't remember the joke he made, but he said, well, I guess, you know, maybe a roll of duct tape, I can fix it up. Something like that. I mean, obviously that wasn't going to happen. But anyway, like I mentioned, our jobs in CBPO is very serious work. And day in and day out, we deal with a lot of situations that aren't pleasant to deal with, a lot of adversarial sort of interactions with other people. And one thing I've learned in all my years, and I've been around a long time, is that a sense of humor is critical to keeping focus not only on what we do, but also keeping it real and not taking things too terribly seriously. Steve understood that. And it's a rare quality in law enforcement. It really is. And it needs to be recognized that it is an important trait to have as a law enforcement officer. So with that, again, Tracy and Brianna and family, thank you so much for sharing Steve with us these past 17 or 15 years, whatever it was, I can't remember. He's made a difference. The people that he's imparted his wisdom and his mentoring to will be in the agency and become leaders in this agency going forward. So he's made a difference that'll last for years to come. So thank you again for sharing him all these years.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask that everybody remain seated. We're going to do a flag presentation.
All uniform personnel, attend, hut, present, arms.
Attention all units, sector. Attention all units, sector. India 5054, this is sector. India 5054, this is sector. Sectors all units. Supervisory Customs and Border Protection Troop Officer Stephen Bowman ended his watch July 11, 2022. At this time, please recognize a moment of silence. Attention all units, attention all units. Supervisory Customs and Border Protection Officer Stephen W. Bowman, India 5054 is now 10-7. We'll take it from here, sir. Rest easy, sector's clear.
Uniformed personnel. Order. Arms.
You may be seated.